Hey guys, so today I want to talk you a little bit through the making of our track Another Lifetime. We're obviously very proud of this track. I feel like it's a really good representation of what we do when we use a lot of keyboards and synths, which is funny because it's something I was actually really trying to get away from for a while. After Hyperion, I just kind of felt like, oh, we should just try and maybe slightly go in a different direction and do things with less synthesizers and sort of focus more on maybe classic keyboards and stuff like that. And we went down that road for a while, and we actually made a whole record that way, pretty much. More kind of 70s, less 80s. But then when we moved to Germany at the start of 2021, there was kind of the sense of relief and in having sort of, started a new phase of our lives. Like, we decided to move to Germany because we just had our second child, Charlie. Patty and I just had our second kid. And it just felt good to be around family, like close family, while the pandemic was still raging on. And we just felt the sense of relief, and all these songs started coming out of us just as a result of being in a new place and feeling inspired and feeling good. So Another Lifetime, I think what Another Lifetime is about is sort of coming to this realization that maybe you won't achieve everything you wanted to achieve in your life. I think a lot of people have a lot of dreams and things that they aspire to and things they want to try and achieve in their lives. And at some point when you start getting a bit older in your life, you start to kind of realize that maybe not all of those things will pan out. Like, maybe you won't be a movie star and a rock star and a scientist and whatever. Some people achieve all of these things, obviously. But, and especially when you become a parent, you start to kind of realize, okay, well, I only have X amount of time to focus on the things that I want to do. So you kind of have to essentialize. And it's, in a way, it's sort of partially a kind of mourning process, again, not to sound too dark, of coming to terms with that in a way. Yeah, so I thought I'd talk you guys a little bit through the session over here. So, the way the song started was I had this bass line idea that is now the bass line of the song, which sounds like this. I'll just solo it for you guys. So that's the main bass line. And at the time, I was just, a lot of the music I'd been making had these kind of somewhat complicated beats, and just something, I was called to kind of using really, really simple backbeats. Like one of my favorite bands, Fleetwood Mac, almost all of their songs, it's like the same beat. It's just Mick Fleetwood playing doots, gats, and something I realized in using that more and more, and a lot of our new songs just have that very simple beat, is that you can be a lot more playful with what goes on around that beat, because the beat is so simple and it's just kind of this backbone that gives you this backbone. It's why, dance music is so successful, why disco is so awesome. It's because it's got this simple backbone, and then you can be a bit more playful around it. So that's one of the things in this song. There's a lot of syncopation going on, but the drums are pretty simple apart from those like fills that go into the chorus. So yeah, so I came up with this bass line, and then one of my favorite artists is Phil Collins, and he does a lot with with like a sustained kind of bass note and playing chords over the top that change, and it gives this feeling of suspension that I always love. And so in the song, it goes from having this kind of sustained, what's the note? It's A. So basically it's an A, and it's just this riff going boom, 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 ba da ba da ba ba in A, pretty much the whole verse, and then the chords change from, it's a C major, G major, D major, A major, C major, but it's actually A. So it kind of goes from major to minor there, which is another thing I love playing with on this record, is the major minor thing. I feel like it always gives things kind of a, not esoteric, but kind of a bit of a mystical, magical feeling to it, because you're not quite sure where you are. You're kind of in the midst of key and whatever. So here's the bass line. And then I just, had the simple drum beat, which is this. Well, actually, in the beginning, it's filtered. Originally, it wasn't filtered, but here you go. sort of thing. And again, this is my session. This isn't Chris Zane's mix, so it's not going to sound as good, but you sort of can hear what I was working with while I was working on the song. I always leave a little bit up to the imagination, because in my mind I think, okay, I'm going to send it off to someone who's going to mix it, and they're going to care about like all the EQ and the harshness and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have to focus on it as much. So yeah, so there we go. So actually, let me just go to the second verse and play that, because it's kind of where things come together a bit more. So there we go. All right, so I'm going to just like unsolo things a bit for you. So there we go. This bass line, drums. And now we're going to hear the Prophet is like a huge stack of like a ton of different. So it's like, I normally do it in 2 octaves, but this time it's a Juno, which is this keyboard, and my Prophet 10, which I only got towards the end of recording the song. So it's the Prophet 10. So here you can hear the Prophet. Super classic, just sawtooth synth sound. I just absolutely love. I'm in love with that sound. I use it in almost every song. It's just classic, you know. To me, it's like it's so important to try and kind of invoke people's sound memory. I feel like it's such a powerful thing, nostalgia, because we have all these memories from being young. And of course, I grew up in the 80s. You know, I was born in 83. Yes, a very long time ago. And so just these sounds have such a strong, they just invoke my sound memory. It's like taste and smell memory as well. I think sometimes if you just smell something, it can take you to a place a long time ago, like from a memory. And I think with sound as well, it has this powerful quality of, you know, a lot of that music was made before I was even really a conscious human being. You know, I was just like a kid in the 80s, but it was all this music was playing in the background. So here we go, super classic. Minimoog playing the bass, Prophet playing this part, and then in the chorus, the Juno comes in. So here we hear it. Super modulated, kind of wavy, but it gives it this nice kind of like, ooh, feeling. And so now we get into some of the syncopated stuff that I was talking about, where one of my favorite things to do is to play. To sort of find the rhythm of the song, the overall thing, and especially on this record, I did this a lot, and then to kind of find a way of playing the bass line and the kind of right-hand rhythm, but kind of together in a syncopated kind of way. So in this song, I mean, you're not going to hear it right now, but it's sort of like this, like, so it's, So it's that kind of thing, which sounds crazy by itself, but then when you put it in the track, it actually, I think it actually adds a lot to the song. So here we go, I'll just play it for you guys. So this is the CP70. The CP70 is a keyboard, I think from the late 70s, early 80s, when people wanted to tour with the piano, but they didn't want to carry a piano with them the whole time. So Yamaha developed this amazing keyboard that stays super in tune, has super stable tuning. It's basically a real piano inside. If you open it up, you just see it has the strings and everything. It doesn't have like 3 strings on some of the keys, only has like 1 or 2. But it's, for all intents and purposes, a real piano. It feels like a piano, and it has a very particular sound to it. Like, there's a song by Genesis called That's All, and it's one of my favorite songs, and it has that. Another Lifetime was actually really influenced by that song. And it has this keyboard sound in it. It's also, I think every U2 piano sound was the CP70 or CP80. There's a 70, which is 70 keys, 80, which is 80 or 88 keys, I'm not sure. But anyway, so here you go. Here you can hear the CP70 playing the syncopated part. And it just adds this bit of funkiness. It kind of, to me, it sort of does something similar to what like a funky electric guitar, like a Nile Rodgers-y kind of guitar does a little bit. It's like halfway between like Elton John, what Elton John does. It is really what Elton John does in many ways, but it's sort of halfway between that and this funky guitar thing. So sometimes, like, if it's a song that's a bit funky and I'm hearing this kind of funky syncopated part, I'll try it on a keyboard and on a guitar, and normally I'll choose one or the other and not have both. But in this, it's the keyboard, obviously. There's very, very few guitars in the song, actually. I think there's only acoustic guitar in the end. Even though I did try a lot of electric guitars, but they didn't make it. So then that's also doubled with a Prophet, with this Prophet, once I got it, the Prophet 10, which I'm absolutely in love with. Like, I think Sequential, Dave Smith did an amazing job recreating this synth. It's everything I could possibly want out of a analog polysynth. It's just like so warm. It's so easy to get the sounds that you want. Highly recommend it. The 10 or the 5. So here you go. Here's the Prophet doubling the CP70. Just turning it up a little bit. It's just got this like funky vibe to it. Just a bit. And then in the chorus, one of my favorite things too is a Mellotron choir sound, which to me again invokes the sound memory of Radiohead, Scott Walker. Like I love some of those earlier Scott Walker records where he had, he had these choirs always singing and it sounded so mystical and it felt like just the skies were opening. Makes me think of Air. It just makes me think of so much music that I love. So here, I'll play you when the Mellotron choir comes in and you can hear it. So good. And I'm sure you can see here, pretty much with everything I record the SE basically stands for space echo. And I record the space echo on every single thing I record pretty much, apart from maybe bass, like electric bass and a couple other things. But for most things, I think it just adds like such a great quality. So I'll just, in this case, I'm just gonna solo the CP70 so you can hear it. Hang on. Let me just do this. So I'll solo the CP70. That's the CP70 by itself. Now you hear it with the space echo. Normally it's turned on pretty low, but I think it just does something. And when it's on everything and a little bit in there, it just takes me somewhere, It just adds this extra dimension to the sound. So anyway, let me go back and re-solo everything. All right, here we go. Okay, and the other thing I was really into doing on this record is triggering my vocoder pedal, which is this thing. So this is something Patty got me years ago in like 2008 or something, when we just quit our job as jingle writers and we were starting our own studio. And I just wanted to do some vocoding, and we found this vocoder pedal. It's really not super expensive electro-harmonics pedal. And it's just a great tool, and I use it on like everything. I mean, I'd love to get an actual Roland vocoder at some point, like one of those rack mount vocoders. But and what I do on almost every song, at least even to try, even if I don't use it, is I will use my Selena string ensemble, which is this keyboard, and I will send that as the carrier signal through. I think it's called the carrier signal through the vocoder, and then send the drums through it as well, and then basically trigger that sound, which then results in this. And actually, I think we didn't actually even end up using that sound in the song. We used it on Rocket in My Feet, but not in this one. And it just gives this great, with the space echo as well, it just sometimes adds this bit of synthy kind of rhythmicness that like fills in some of the 16ths and syncopation in such a cool way. All right, so let's continue. I have some organ as well, B3 organ, which was recorded at Big Mercy in Brooklyn. There it is. Just like a cool pad. And again, B3 to me just invokes sound memory. All about sound memory here, guys. All right, so we've been through that. And then, of course, we have the synth solo, which is my trusty Mini Moog Model D over here, which also is one of my favorite synths. I feel so happy that I'm at a place now where I can have a Mini Moog Model D, a Prophet 10, a Juno, and just like a Whirly, and just like all these classic sounds immediately at my fingerprints. Like there's obviously some other keyboards I'd love to get. Like I'd love to get a Vox organ, like a Vox Continental. I'd love to have my own B3, which I don't right now. But I feel like I'm getting pretty close to having absolutely my dream synth collection and keyboard collection. And we have a upright piano in the other room. So yeah, so there we go. So now we have the synth solo, which is the Mini Moog, like I said. And yeah, just, I was, sound memory wise, it's like Jean-Michel Jarre, Air, like a lot of French, old French music, maybe Giorgio Moroder, there's just like something of this kind of slightly classical sound, like it could be played on a harpsichord or something, but it's a synth sound, and just very slow attack on the filter, and not very slow, a little like slow, so it's not like a sharp attack, and then this is what we end up with. Super proud of that solo. It felt so good to me the moment I came up with this. And in general, the song actually came together super, super fast. It took some months to really get all the parts and stuff, but yeah. And then we also have a whirly, and then so we have then chords, all the synth stabs like on we call them footballs sometimes in music, but just like on the downbeats, the chord changes. It's so many instruments. It's the Juno, it's the Prophet over here, and then it's this whirly and upright piano all in 2 octaves. So it's just kind of insane. So here you can hear it. So you go, the whirly's in. The whirly actually, I think it adds something really nice. And then we have piano. Maybe piano wasn't in 2 octaves. Or was it? I don't know. Might have just bounced it down at some point. I don't know. All of it together just does something. And then I have a crystallizer, which is the H3000, which is also one of my favorite rack effects units. Super classic too. Yeah, there's a crystallizer, which just adds like a bit of lift to things in certain sections of the song. You can hear it, just kind of like, basically what it does is it takes a sound, it pitches the sound up like multiple octaves, depending on the preset or what your setting is, and then adds some delay, like delays it a bit, I think. And so you just end up with this like beautiful kind of, it just sounds like an 80s fantasy film or something. You can just imagine little elves running around and sparkly little fairies and stuff. Yeah, so we have the mid section over here. Bass piano. One of my other favorite things to use is always kind of epic. Makes me think of ABBA. Makes me think of just so many great kind of orchestral pop records. We have a Selena string ensemble, which is over there again. One of my favorite things that feels really disco. When artists couldn't afford strings back in the day, especially in the disco era, they would use the Selena string ensemble, and you hear it popping up all over the place. And yeah, what's so cool is you can, it has this little pitch bend thing as well, but it's like not like usual pitch bend. It's like you actually have to do the pitch, and you've got to be careful and listen where you're going back, if you're going back down to the right pitch, and if you're sharp or flat. But I love bending it like that. We have the same thing going on in A Brighter Love from Hyperion. Yeah, and then I have an omnichord playing some cool little things in the verses, which is this thing. It's basically a toy from Suzuki. It's just this great thing that looks like this. And you can just play chords and then use this as kind of it's like playing a little bit like playing a harp, which is an electronic one. Yeah, so there's that. And then what else do we have? Then there's like an arpeggio thing over here going on. This is one of the last things I added just to kind of give the beginning a bit of movement, because I felt like it was kind of getting a bit stuck, and it's just like basically one note, an A, an A, just randomize it a variety of octaves using the Logic arpeggiator over here. So here are the settings. So I just have it on like random, octave range 4. I might have been changing it live while I was doing it. Variation 3, note length low, 16th notes, and then it just kind of does this cool thing. So so sometimes if I want to have an arpeggio, because I love arpeggios in songs, I have them in almost every song, but sometimes you don't want to like impose a chord or something, and you just kind of want the root note kind of thing, and that's in this case what I did. So there it is. So you can hear it by itself like this. It kind of has this cool oscillating thing going on. All right, yeah. Now we're getting down to the crux of the story. Here is the only guitars featured in the song is acoustic guitar strums in the synth solo section, just like big strums. Just kind of takes you to this almost like spaghetti western place. A huge Ennio Morricone fan as well. And his music is always just so visual, and you just feel like you're taken somewhere. And so that, to me, often those kind of acoustic guitar strums to me go together really well with the castagnettes, like, but sometimes like it just takes you over the edge of cheesiness a little bit. And so I tried the castagnettes in the song, and it just kind of felt like it was too much. And then we get down to the vocals, and here we go. So you can see I have this whole vocal effects chain that I've figured out over time with some of my rack gear, some plugins. So, we have my lead vocals here. And I do tune my vocals a little bit. For a long time I tried not to, but it was just kind of a nightmare, especially with modern music. But I always use graphical mode, and a very, very low retune rate, like 140, if that means anything to anyone. And I only do like generally long notes, and so all of the kind of waveriness of the note is generally kept, but you're just kind of lifting some notes that are a little too low or too high, up or down a teeny bit. So here we go. So you can hear. So here's the lead vocal, and we have a room. It's probably like AMS nonlinear, or do I have that lower? Yeah, that's probably AMS. And I have some chorus on it, a little slap from Space Echo. And here's like a long Space Echo, a longer Space Echo. And this all adds up to almost being like a reverb and just a cool like complex. And then these are delay throws from my H3000. Like manually find the milliseconds. It's kind of crazy, but it's like I've gotten really quick at doing it. And then I have a plate, which I think is the UAD 140 plate. Here's delay throw. Actually, so that stereo delay is not a throw. And so then one of the things I do is I always do like a delay throw, and sometimes I don't use it, but I make it, where I take like the last, like, feeling you'll be fine, fine, fine. And I add a quarter note delay. Sometimes it's quarter, sometimes it's eighth note delay to the last syllable, basically. And it almost always adds something, even if it's really low, it just kind of fills in a bit of space. And, yes, it's a formula, but here you can hear it. Wait. You'll be fine. I even added a bit of extra delay to that, maybe. Yeah, so that's that. I mean, sometimes I have a great spring reverb, this Knas Ekdal spring reverb. Sometimes I add that. Sometimes I add all different kinds of things. But and then the other thing is I have the vocoder going as well, my vocals, and I do it at 2 octaves with the Selena as the carrier signal, and here you can hear it. And if you'll be fine. Nobody's happy every time they feel the rhythm. Just doing the chord changes. Do you feel the rhythm? And just even if it's tucked in a little bit, it just adds this kind of like depth and like presence to the vocals and makes them feel like they're in this beautiful space. And for the first time in your life. And then here's all, I'm gonna just solo all the vocals for you guys so you can hear. Here's Patty's lead vocals, also with Space Echo once again.
into the rhythm. Oh, 'cause you make me feel like going back in time. I sing to the light, oh dawn, pay no mind, 'cause you'll be on my mind.
That's the outro. And then this like vamp. I love to call it a vamp because it sounds so ridiculous. But I always try, if there's a lot of syncopated rhythms, I normally try like a vocal doing like a vamp over that. Like we had it in Elevate, the you know that I want to get away. And it's like doubling what the guitar is doing and all the stuff at the end. And I tried it here as well, but it didn't end up keeping it. So so I guess the one thing I didn't cover is the percussion. So there's not actually that much percussion in the song. Normally, I have a lot more percussion. But there is a gong, you know, because you got to have a gong sometimes. There it is. And there's my gong in the corner. Also, it takes you somewhere, you know, it feels like you kind of, gives you like a feeling of like travel or something. I don't know. I love that. One of my favorite genres of music is exotica, and I guess it's come to be a little bit sort of thought of as like a bit of like a racist music because it was generally made by white people and to kind of imagine, you know, put these worlds of like exotic music together and in their own imagination. But there's something to it to me that still kind of invokes this feeling of like a kind of like a tiki bar or something, you know? It's kind of this like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but so I think of that a lot, and I try to include a lot of different kind of cultural influences in my music too. So we have the gong, and then here is claps. So always, every song, all of these percussion things are just recorded through the whole song. I almost never loop anything. Like sometimes if I want the claps to be bigger, I might, you know, stack them, but I'll always clap through the song a few times, you know, and we try and, just because I think it adds texture to the song, to that everything isn't just always lined up and perfect, and that there's some changes. So here's the claps. And then I added a clap sample too. And then we have gong, we have congas. I don't think the congas actually made it in the end. Normally I always have congas. Tambourine hits.